Well, this is the information coming in right now, and we're staying with the story this evening, viewers, because it is a story that has sent shivers down the spine, not just of the entire journalistic fraternity, but also across the country. At around 8 p.m. this evening, Gauri Lankesh, senior outspoken journalist in Bangalore, was murdered in cold blood at her home. 7 rounds of bullets were fired. We understand 3 of those bullets found their mark in Gauri Lankesh. 4 bullets missed the target. Gauri Lankesh was standing at her door of her house when the incident took place this evening at 8 p.m. in Rajeshwari Nagar in Bangalore at Gauri Lankesh's residence. There is no doubt, given the information that is coming in, that this was in fact murder. A very senior journalist who's been murdered in her house. I want to bring in Mr. Dhanraj Banjari. Mr. Banjari is a senior retired IPS officer. Mr. Banjari, obviously this is not suicide. This is murder in cold blood.
Of course, from the fact of the case, it seems it is a murder in cold blood. As he was standing near the door, there is a possibility of someone had come, just rang the bell. If he is the killer, he would have just saw her and opened the fire on her. Somehow, she, looking at the situation, tried to protect her and missed 4 fires, but 3 fires ultimately hit her and she is dead. So, from the facts prima facie of the issue, it seems it's a very cold-blooded murder. Now, there must be a reason for this, and if you go for the theory of causation, that what causes this murder to happen, so first indication goes that she is in the field of journalism, whereas the track record suggests that she had some clashes and crosses with the ruling party people.
Yes.
And she was also reportedly been convicted and was on bail where the defamation suits were filed against her. I think from this theory, if the investigation will go on digging in a proper fashion, the ultimate killer would be identified and such people should be arrested at the earliest, I should say.
Well, we are going to bring in our other guests, but I just want to give our viewers an understanding of who Gauri Lankesh was. It seems unnatural to use the word was or to speak about her in the past tense, because she was such a vibrant person, and because those of us specifically who grew up training to be journalists in the city of Bangalore read Gauri Lankesh's work extensively. We heard her speak. She was someone we looked up to, and she was someone we wanted to grow up to be like. To now, and I apologize to our viewers, but very disturbing visuals on your screen of Gauri's body as it was found at her home. This, we understand the incident took place at 8 p.m. this evening, where someone obviously, from the looks of it, knocked at her door, fired 7 rounds of bullets, 3 of which hit Gauri Lankesh, and she was found dead. For our viewers at home, in 2005, Gauri Lankesh started her own weekly magazine. She called it Gauri Lankesh Patrika. And in the past decade, it grew to employ about 50 people. Gauri Lankesh was a very vocal journalist who was a columnist also in a lot of other newspapers. She had, at some point, written an article against 2 BJP leaders in the state of Karnataka. One, Prahlad Joshi, who was the BJP MP of Dharwad, and another, Umesh Doshi. They filed a case of criminal defamation against her. She was given a 6-month sentence and a fine by the courts in Bangalore, by a sessions court. She received bail, and she went on to say that a lot of people assumed she would go to jail, and they were disappointed to see that she didn't go to jail. She was out on bail, and she was going to appeal against that particular sentence. She had also spoken out to say that she had received death threats. Gauri Lankesh was one of the few women editors in the regional language press, that especially in the state of Karnataka. And like has been said by other members of the panel that we were talking to, she was outspoken, she was liberal, and she was a very, very strong voice. She was a role model for younger journalists like myself who were training to be journalists in the city of Bangalore. I know that Mr. Ansari is still with us. Mr. Ansari, I apologize again for being the one to bear this news to you, but more information coming in, the more heinous and cold-blooded this entire crime sounds.
Well, absolutely. And now, I mean, I don't want to prejudge the investigations, but now, I mean, it's anybody's guess that she paid the price for taking on the high and mighty. She was a very fearless and a very upright journalist, and she didn't think twice. And those who knew her and those who cared for her would often advise her that, you know, you probably need to go a bit easy, just look after yourself, look over your shoulder a lot more. But she would have none of it. And unfortunately, the poor lady has paid the price for it. And this is a very sad, very disturbing, and a very poignant reminder of the difficult times that we live in, where any and everything is par for the course, where nobody is secure, where you might even have to pay the ultimate price for speaking out. Unfortunately, it happened to a friend and colleague. But this is a sad fact of the times, the sad reality of the times that we live in, Faye.
Well, I want to bring in Rifat Javed as well. Rifat is also a very senior journalist and also an outspoken journalist. Rifat, first of all, my condolences to you as a member of the fraternity. Journalists are constantly told to go easy, to be careful, to sort of look after themselves and their families or worry about their own safety and their family's safety first before taking on the establishment. This is a chilling reminder to journalists across the country of what's at stake.
Faye, I was waiting to come and join you when the news was broken to me. And as soon as I came to know that it was Gauri Lankesh, my heart sank, you know, and I'm being brutally honest. My heart sank for two reasons. One, that I think it's a first direct attack on a very active journalist who has been speaking very vociferously against the establishments. That's number one. And number two, we have been talking about the dangerous time that we live in. And this is just a chilling reminder that the danger is not that far, but it's very close to home. You see, unfortunately, what happens, I mean, I was in a global media conference in Germany a couple of months ago where we were discussing about the danger faced by the journalists. And not many were willing to discuss, you know, the danger that we in India, the journalists in India face. And I think, you know, the Gauri Lankesh's killing, you know, is a chilling reminder. I'll tell you, you know, the ease with which her assailants have walked inside her house. You know, they have come on a motorbike, walked inside her house, shot dead, and went away. You know, that's how easy it is to kill a prominent journalist these days, and that's what the price you have to pay for standing up against the establishment. And you are right. You introduced me as being an outspoken journalist. I think I am often described by my family as stupid, you know, for swimming against the tide, you know, for holding politicians of all hue to account. And I think, you know, if it's Gauri Lankesh today, what's a guarantee that it won't be me tomorrow? And unfortunately, you know, going by the past precedents, you know, the death of a journalist or death of any human being, regardless of their prominence in India, you know, only becomes statistics, you know, and that's a sad reality.
You know, I want to bring in Amit Khemka, and I'm comforted to know that Amit Khemka is with us this evening. Mr. Khemka, like Rifat Javed and Mr. Ansari pointed out, in the past, these deaths have become statistics. How important is it, Mr. Khemka, for this time for us to rally around what has happened, to stand together as a fraternity, and to just say that we will not let this life have gone in vain? This is about freedom of speech. This is about the basic rights that our Constitution gives us.
Faye, if you see, the act itself is an act of cowardice. Now, what we need to understand, what the politicians and the people of this country need to understand is that democracy is not merely numbers. Democracy in the first place is actually about dialogue, actually about free voice, actually about discussion, actually about letting a counterpoint come in. That is what is democracy. The numbers are a last resort. It is only when dialogues don't yield any result, then only you have to resort to numbers. Numbers are not the first place. So if you kill the institutions which are based on dialogue, say for example Parliament. In Parliament, the laws must be made on the basis of dialogue, on the basis of discussion, on the basis of counterpoints, on the basis of acceptance of the counterpoints. Now you don't discuss anything there, you snub people, you don't allow the discussions to take place, you don't allow the debate to take place there. Then you come to the courts. You don't allow the courts to function. You don't give them the infrastructure. You don't give them allow transparency in appointment of judges. So you don't have discussions there. Now, when it comes to the fourth pillar of democracy, the journalism, this is the way you are killing journalism also. So if you kill all these institutions which are based on dialogue, and the democracy is based on dialogue, democracy is based on counterpoint, democracy is based on free speech. Now if you kill all these institutions in this manner, believe you me, you will not have democracy. And if you will not have democracy, it will be very, very horrible for the country. It will be absolutely horrible. No dictator in this world, nowhere in this world you had democracy. Has its own negatives, but democracy is probably the best possible system of governance we people know of, and which is based on the dialogue. You have to allow free speech. You can't be going around killing people like this. You can't be snubbing the voice, gagging the voices with bullets. It is not done in democracy. People of this country have to rise. Everybody has to understand. Even politicians have to understand. You just saw in the debate which went by, the politicians are not ready to listen. They are not ready to understand that we are not their enemies. We just want to say that this is right or this is wrong. That's all which we are wanting to say. Please listen. What is the problem in listening to the common man of this country?
Right. I also want to point out to our viewers, Gauri Lankesh, his father, P. Lankesh, was a Karnataka translator and a journalist himself. This was a family of respected journalists. And like I was saying, as someone who grew up in the city of Bangalore, was training to be a journalist, was a cub journalist myself, Gauri Lankesh was someone we admired. We saw her as a role model. We wanted to grow up to be like Gauri Lankesh. This is chilling and absolutely shocking. Ejaz Ilmi joins us as well. Ejaz Ilmi, what sort of a country are we living in when senior journalists are shot dead in cold blood, point blank in their homes? What sort of a message does this send to the rest of the country, to the journalistic fraternity?
Well, it is extremely distressing and totally condemnable. Faye, I must add out here, I had the pleasure of meeting up with Gauri Lankesh in 2001 when I was setting up schools in Bangalore. And then I went to a home which functioned as an office also in Baswangudi. And she also did a little write-up on education at my insistence. It was, and I knew, because my uncle, who was a senior journalist and a member of parliament, knew her father also very, very well, which is why I went to meet up with her and discuss education. She was an avid anti-establishment person, like most journalists should be. She was a trenchant critic of all forms of anything that was exploitative. And she also covered a lot of various issues like scams, cooperative bank scams, and there were all kinds of things that she covered. And she was equally critical for every government which was, she seemed, was exploitative. Obviously, any death is very, very tragic, but this belonged to the journalistic fraternity because criticism is a part of a democratic system, and we cannot start killing people because they express their criticism and a different point of view. So I expect the Karnataka government, in all its seriousness, to actually go after the individuals who went to a home in Baswangudi and killed her in cold blood. And if there's anybody behind it, they should be extremely strict and tough and get to the bottom to restore credibility that people are safe. It could be in any place.
Well, obviously there was somebody behind it, because from the information that we understand, that the assailants came to her doorstep, they knocked or they rang the bell, and when she opened the door, they fired at her point blank. They fired 7 rounds of bullets in her home, 3 of which hit Gauri Lankesh in the chest, and she was killed. 4 missed the mark. And I'm going to go back to Dhanraj Vanjari. When we spoke at the beginning, when you sat down, we didn't have all of the information, Mr. Vanjari. Now we understand that she was shot point blank in the chest. 7 rounds were fired, 3 of which hit her in the chest. This was a planned cold-blooded murder.
Exactly. From the facts, it seems it's a planned cold-blooded murder. Now, looking into the personality of
Miss Lankesh, yes.
Miss Lankesh, I can say there cannot be a individual killer. If it is a personal and enmity, something like that, there are very less chances of it. Then who is behind it? Behind such murders, always there is a thought, and very rarely the investigating agency can reach up to the root core of that thought. You can see in Maharashtra the murders of Dr. Dabholkar, Pansare. Then in Karnataka, the murder of Kalburgi. I think this is second this thing in Karnataka, it's happening. All investigations is going on since last 5 years almost, but they have reached nowhere. Only the report has been filed in High Court, and High Court keeps on wrapping them that the investigation is not proper, this is not even the strictures have been passed, but nothing moves beyond that.
Mr. Prashant Bhushan is on the phone line with us right now, senior advocate. Mr. Bhushan, thank you for joining us. Mr. Dhanraj Vanjari is a retired police officer who said this sort of crime tells us that we're barely living in a democracy anymore. What's your response right now, Mr. Bhushan?
Firstly, of course, it's very, very tragic that we have lost one of our bravest and finest journalists in this country. And in this manner, what is this country coming to? 3 rationalists, Dabholkar, Pansare and Kalburgi, were shot dead similarly in this same manner as she has been shot dead. And what is the common link between all these people? That they were rationalists who were opposing this kind of obscurantism, superstition, this right-wing sort of assault and lumpenism that is going on in the name of cows, in the name of Romeo squads or whatever else. And people like this who have the courage to stand up and oppose these kind of lumpen gundas, etc., are being shot dead in this totally cold-blooded manner. It's very, very unfortunate that we have reached this state of affairs. And it's even more unfortunate that some of those who hold very important positions, ministers, etc., in this country, are encouraging and following these kind of lumpen thugs on Twitter and so on and so forth, and encouraging them. It's a very, very shocking state of affairs that we have reached.
It is a shocking state of affairs. Mr. Bhushan, stay with us. And I just want you to explain this to our viewers, the fact that Gauri Lankesh was accused of criminal defamation. She was given a 6-month sentence and a fine of 1 lakh rupees by a court, and she was out on bail with the intentions of appealing to a sessions court. This is from December last year. This criminal defamation case was filed by 2 BJP leaders who had taken objection to one of the articles that she had written. Would you explain to our viewers what this means from a journalistic point of view? I don't think we have Mr. Bhushan with us anymore. Mr. Ahmed Khemka, would you take that question, please?
Yeah. Look, Faye, the question is that when a journalist is doing his or her duty, there are bound to be stories where you can say it will be a little overstepping, or the story could be based on some information which may not be entirely correct, and sometimes there are slips also. So to say that every slip or every time something like that happens, it is defamatory, that would not be the correct state of affairs. Now, I don't know the facts of the case, so I I will not like to comment much upon that because it is already pending in the court of law. Or rather it was now, it will be now infructuous actually, if you see. Now, the question here is, and what is most saddening here is that the politicians of this country have to understand that the journalists or lawyers for that matter, or the judges for that matter, when they criticize them, they are not their enemies. What they are doing is, they are actually teaching them. And unfortunate part is that rather than learning from their mistakes or learning from the criticism, they want to browbeat the people who are criticizing. And what is most unfortunate is that this has happened on the Teacher's Day. Today is Teacher's Day, and she has been killed on such a pious day. I mean, it's something very, very ridiculous that the people in this country no more want to hear what the criticism. They actually should be learning from the criticism. Every criticism, even if it is wrong, it doesn't matter. You will still be able to learn something out of it. So what is required is that the people of this country, especially the politicians and the bureaucrats, start learning from criticism rather than trying to get offended, rather than getting angry. And this is not fair on their part.
Right. I understand Akar Patel is on the phone line with us. Akar Patel is also a very respected senior journalist. Mr. Patel, thank you for joining us on Mirror Now. Terrible information coming in this evening. All right, we've lost Akar's phone number. Terrible information coming in about the fact that we have lost Gauri Lankesh, a journalist who was very, very outspoken. Mr. Bhushan, I believe, is still with us, but I want to take this question back to Mr. Ansari. Mr. Ansari, as you said, as a journalist, you're constantly told to go easy. You said that people were constantly telling Gauri Lankesh to go easy, to perhaps take it a little easy on the people she was criticizing. It's really a question about, when it comes to journalists, it's really a question about risking your life on a daily basis. And do you believe that now, at least for the next few days, a lot of journalists are going to be asking themselves the question of whether or not this is really worth it?
Well, the families will certainly be asking this question. Even those who were cautioning Gauri were doing it out of fear, out of love, out of affection for her. But if a journalist is worth his salt, he will still go out there. And I can assure you, and I can assure our viewers, that there will be enough journalists out there who will, knowing the odds that they face, they will still go out there and do an honest day's work, and which is telling the right stories, telling the truth, no matter what the cost.
I want to ask H.S. Ilmi this question. Dr. Ilmi, a lot of times people who question the forces at power, the powers that be, are called anti-nationals, are called people who don't love their country. The truth is, if journalists did not love their country, they would choose a safer and an easier job. They would work at banks. They would work in, at retail stores. Obviously, if this is the risk that journalists are taking on a daily basis, they are nationalists. They love their country.
Well, obviously, I am not in the business, and political parties should not be in the business of giving certificates of nationalism or otherwise to anybody. But there can be no justification whatsoever for killing somebody who could be a critic of you or was indulging in criticism. There is no justification, because I firmly believe criticism is an essential part of democracy, and silencing of those voices is a criminal act which needs to be punished very stringently. I hope that the killers and whoever is behind them are caught. I repeat, I will not prejudge or presume. Gauri was a fighter to the core. She had various causes, including Kannada, and she was a trenchant anti-establishment journalist, as most old journalists of the old guard have been for a very, very long time, unlike what you see today. So it is very obvious that she was part of the old guard. She was a mentor to a lot of other journalists, and I hope that for the sake of, in the interest of justice, we get to the bottom of who killed her and why she was shot dead. There should be a thorough investigation on this, and irrespective of who they may be, they should be punished under the laws of the land.
In fact, I just want to read this out to you. This is an interview that Gauri Lankesh had given the website News Laundry. The question that was asked of her: "You have earlier come under attack for being a Maoist supporter and being a Hindu hater. How do you respond to such criticism?" This is the response that Gauri Lankesh gave. She said, "Unfortunately today, anybody talking in support of human rights and against fake encounters is being branded a Maoist supporter. Along with that, my criticism of Hindutva politics and the caste system, which is part and parcel of what is considered Hindu drama, makes my critics brand me a Hindu hater. But I consider it my constitutional duty to continue, in my own little way, the struggle of Dr. Ambedkar towards establishing an egalitarian society." She did continue her fight in her own way, and her fight was dramatically ended this evening by people who came to her home and shot her point blank in the chest. They shot her dead. Trisha Shetty, it's a question about freedom of speech at the end of the day. It's a question about what our democracy assures us, and it's about fighting for human rights.
You know, most definitely. I think, even her Twitter bio, I was just, looking through it. She recognizes her role as a journalist and an activist. She was, I believe, one of the few female language press journalists who was convicted on a criminal defamation case. She was outspoken that journalists should not be convicted and subject to, not just journalists, but criminal defamation cases in such regards should be scrapped, that we should relook at the laws. But more than anything, convicting her for the criminal defamation case, and now with her death, there is a very clear message that is being sent out to everyone. You are paying a price for speaking up against the government. You are paying a price for speaking up against Hindutva politics and the caste system. And that is the price that you're paying for living in a country that we call a democracy. So for all activists out there, for anyone who wants to challenge what is happening right now, challenge the establishment, the message is very clear. You may pay for the cost you may pay for it is with your life, and that is a clear intimidation tactic. That is a clear silencing tactic. Everyone at this point should be outraged.
I have Shankar Bidri on the phone line with me, former DGP Karnataka. Mr. Bidri, thank you for joining us. It's being said right now in reports that Gauri Lankesh had received death threats and that had been communicated to the police. Was she, to the best of your knowledge, being given any sort of protection from the police in Bangalore?
It is a personal loss of a good friend to me. I knew her from 1992. Of course, I did not agree with her on many views, but she was a brilliant lady, and she was committed to many public causes, and she was very bold in propagating her own thoughts and whatever she thought is correct. This act is a very dastardly act, and I strongly condemn it. Unfortunately, in Karnataka, the Kalburgi murder case, which took place more than 2 years back, is not yet detected. And I want the government to take this case very seriously, and this case should not go the case of Kalburgi murder case, and this case must be detected.
Well, stay with us, Mr. Bidri. I want to go to Rifat Javed. Rifat, journalists don't normally get protection very easily, even if they say they're receiving threats.
Well, they do. If you happen to be very close to the powers that be, then you do. I mean, this is an utter irony in this country, which we have noticed in the last 3.5 years, that you don't have to have a proper threat to get the Y category or Z category. In fact, the people who are going through constant threat are the people who don't get the security and end up, paying for their life. Look, Ms. Shetty was making a very profound comment about, Gauri Lankesh, that Gauri Lankesh started a tabloid 10 years ago. She was working as an independent journalist, as an entrepreneur, without taking ad from the government, without taking ad from the corporate. You have to be me to understand what the ordeal she may have been going through every day. I have been an entrepreneur for the last 2.5 years, not getting support from government, not getting ad from corporate world. It's not easy, and yet to maintain integrity to the highest order is amazing, and we must salute these kind of people. I think the kind of environment environment that we live in, I mean, we have to understand who has contributed to the environment that we are living in, wherein, even a mere criticism, amounts to or prompts people on social media to declare lynching. I mean, if you criticize government, you are anti-national. If you happen to have a name like Rifat Javed, you also get declared a jihadi. So I'm anti-national, I'm jihadi because you hold the political parties or the government to account. Now, Mr. Prashant Bhushan made a point which we didn't actually dwell upon. He said the kind of people who support this kind of violence against free press are the people that Prime Minister follows them. We have been writing about it. Why? So who is encouraging them? This is time. How many more journalists do you want to die before Prime Minister actually starts, condemning these kind of things publicly and stop following those violent people on Twitter?
Well, Rifat, the other thing our viewers must understand is that exactly about 2 years ago, another rationalist by the name of M.M. Kalburgi was shot dead in a shockingly similar manner, where the assailants knocked on his door, and when he opened the door, they fired shots at him. The two crimes are so similar that they almost seem like an airy message that is being sent out. Mr. Kalburgi was the former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Hampi, and his assailants were never found, and his case was not closed. This seems like almost a message or a reminder that is being sent out to the fraternity. Mr. Banjari?
As it has been very outspokenly said by ex-DGP of Karnataka himself, the chief of the police once upon a time is saying that today's Karnataka police is totally demoralized. We really do not expect any good result from them. If you go to CBI or some NIA or some bigger agencies, in this country there is no guarantee that investigative agency is autonomous or totally free from the political clutches. They have all their influences. As I rightly said before, that this is not a personal outrage killing out of some enmity, but it is one ideology against another ideology. If you speak for Ambedkar, or if you take a name of Ambedkar or talk of Ambedkar, there is a fear that you have been immediately labeled as Naxalite or maybe some radical, or you are doing something against the nation.
But I just want to point out one thing here, and we understand that Gauri Lankesh's body is being shifted to Victoria Hospital in Bangalore. Postmortem will be conducted tomorrow. It is not about what side you are on or what you're criticizing. This is simply about the fact that a journalist has been killed, irrespective of what she was criticizing, whom she was criticizing, or which side of the argument she was on. It's about the fact that in this country we are assured the freedom of speech. And it is that freedom of speech that has been shot at today. Mr. Khemka, it is about the right we have as every individual citizen, not as journalists, but every individual citizen, to ask questions and to have an opinion.
Faye, you were just now calling, and Rifat was referring to the security. Now, do you really think that if you or me were given the security, it will actually be security?
Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Siddaramaiah, addressing the media, just to give you a translation of what he said. He said the assailants came to her gate between 8 and 8:30 this evening. They shot at her in the most inhumane manner. He went on to say that he has known Gauri Lankesh for many, many years from her father's time, he said. She continued her father's work, working for society, most importantly, highlighting and fighting social injustice. He also said that from the time that his government had come into power in the state of Karnataka, Gauri Lankesh had helped the government with the surrenders of several Naxalites within the state of Karnataka. He went on to say that he has instructed the police to find the assailants and to launch an investigation in the quickest fashion in order to close this case as soon as possible. He also said very clearly that there was no information at all right now that, of who these assailants were or what motives they might have had. He said the police has no information at all about the identity of these assailants. A very audibly upset journalist asked him a question. He said, in a city like Bangalore, how can we have someone walk into a home at 8:30 in the evening and open fire at a residence? This is not a remote location, the journalist asked. This is a metropolitan city. What sort of safety are we looking at? Obviously, the Chief Minister there addressing questions from very, very upset journalists who are shocked by the information that's coming in. He didn't have too many, too many answers to hand out there. Mr. Ansari, unfortunately, this is going to be a long investigation, and the thing that we have to be worried about is that previous investigations into murders like this one have led to nothing. Previous cases like the case of Narendra Dabolkar, Govind Pansare, we've not really seen it come to anything. Those investigations have not yielded results.
Yes, and therefore, our duty becomes all the more. We need to ensure that the heat is on them. We need to...
Right. Mr. Ansari, forgive me. I'm going to I'm going to interrupt you for a second. We have Prahlad Joshi with us on the phone line. He was the BJP MP who filed the case of criminal defamation against Gauri Lankesh. He's on the phone line right now. Mr. Joshi, what is your reaction to the news that's coming in of the murder of Gauri Lankesh?
No, it is highly condemnable, and I want to condemn it at the strongest words available at my command. I strongly condemn this, and culprit should be brought to book. I think in Karnataka, fear of law is not in existence. People are not bothered about the government, and the policing is very, very poor.
Well, tell me something. Did you believe that Gauri Lankesh's journalism was upsetting to a lot of people, Mr. Joshi?
Sorry?
Was there a general view in Karnataka that Gauri Lankesh's journalism was upsetting to a lot of people?
See, her circulation or her this thing was very, very limited. I think whatever the journal, the tabloid which was coming out, it was not even some few hundred also. I think 200-300 circulation was there. That I don't think it was hurting much people. And nowadays, she had, there was no, her circulation was also very poor, and I don't think that.
Well, you did file a defamation case against her, despite the fact that her circulation was very poor, and in your opinion, her influence was limited.
No, even if it is one paper, if she is selling and if she writes against me the bogus things, false thing, I will file a defamation case against anybody, including you. You cannot write anything which is not true, which is not nearer to the truth.
So you believe that Gauri Lankesh was writing bogus articles?
She had written against me. I am not talking about what she had written about others. But she had written, and the court has convicted her. She just cannot prove what she had written. That is a different issue. This is a different issue.
Right. And the manner in which this crime was committed, Mr. Joshi, murder, point blank at cold blood, do you believe someone is sending us a message?
See, before investigation, jumping to any conclusion is not wrong. It is not correct. Let police investigate, let law enforcing agency investigate it. Let the clue come out. Before to that, if you jump to the conclusion, then the investigation will not go in a proper manner.
And Mr. Joshi, you did say, of course, at the beginning that law and order has completely collapsed in the city of Bangalore. We heard the Chief Minister address the media when the media questioned him about the fact that this is not a remote location. The location where Gauri Lankesh's home was in Bangalore, in Rajeshwari Nagar, is not remote. It's in the middle of the city. Do you believe that?
That's right.
Yes.
There is no fear of law in the people's mind. That is the problem. Even Kalburgi's assassination, it is in my constituency. From last 2 years is over now. Nobody is suffering. No, the Karnataka government and the Home Ministry, police, they are clueless. This is what their policing is.
So you believe that this has happened because of a breakdown in law and order, Mr. Joshi?
Yeah. People do not have, the criminals do not have fear of law in the Karnataka.
Mr. Joshi, I'm surprised you're bringing up politics on a night like this. You also threatened to...
No, what are you talking? What politics I am talking? If he talks that it is a murder of democracy, then it is not politics. If I say that it is his failure, then it is a politics. How can you call me as a politics? It is the failure of the state government.
Do you not believe that the murder of a senior journalist is the murder of democracy?
Any murder is not good, including whether it is journalist or anybody. The murder, by eliminating physically anybody, you cannot end the dissent voice or difference of opinion. It is there always. For any ideology or for anything, there will be a difference of opinion. By assassinating for any person or any journalist, it is condemnable. I don't think whether it is for she is writing against something that is killed, that is not established. We can't come to conclusion or judgment.
No, I'm not asking you to come to a conclusion. I'm just saying, as someone who is a MP, a member of parliament, do you not believe that the murder of a senior journalist is the murder of democracy?
Murder of anybody is threat to the democracy. Murder is not at all acceptable, not only journalist. Anybody is murder, including journalist.
So when you say that calling this a threat to democracy is politicizing the whole thing, what do you mean?
I am not politicizing. If it is the murder of democracy, I agree with that. It is a murder of democracy, but it is because of Mr. Siddaramaia's failure, it is a murder of democracy.
Because of Mr. Siddaramaia's failure, it's a murder. Do you, to the best of your ability, Mr. Joshi, did the senior journalist complain about having received death threats? Did she at any point, or should she at any point received police protection?
I do not have any of that information. Now I am also having look at some various channels because I don't know whether she had received the threat letters or all those things need to be investigated.
So if we don't know the details of the case right now, how do we know if it's because of the failure of the state government?
Then what? It is just at the 8 o'clock. It is in the heart of the city. If somebody murders, then is it not the failure of the state government and the policing?
All right. Prahlad Joshi, member of BJP, who had filed the case of criminal defamation against Gauri Lankesh, on the phone line with us, calling this a failure of law and order on the part of the current state government. I also want to draw our viewers' attention to the fact that not only did he say, if anyone writes anything about me, I will file a complaint. This is shockingly similar to the murder of M.M. Kalburgi, who was a rationalist who was murdered in a similar manner. But I just want to draw our attention back to one thing. And this is a very important question that one of the journalists asked the Chief Minister of Karnataka in the press conference, that Rajeshwari Nagar, where Ms. Lankesh was living, is a crowded part of Bangalore. It is not a remote part of our country. In a city like Bangalore, how can a crime like this have been committed? What sort of safety do any of us have as citizens if this is the kind of law and order situation in the city of Bangalore? And that is a very, very important question to ask. And I have that question for you, Mr. Vanjari. How can Bangalore have crumbled to this point? Where is the law and order situation in Bangalore?
Definitely it speaks on the deteriorated situation of law and order. There is no law and order, that's why such thing can happen. But when certain things are specifically targeted, senior journalists like her being killed in such a brutal manner, there is always a thing to look beyond that. Mr. Joshi MP was speaking, I think 2 points he made very clear in this. Number one, that she had a very less circulation, like 100 copies or maybe something like that. If such a minor circulation, where is the question of causing defamation to the person of MP's rank? Well, if he feels that there is a defamation, he is well conscious of his constitutional right.
Yes.
Then
in fact, Mr. Vanjari, this is a question we should ask Brajesh Kalapa of the Karnataka Congress, who joins us on the phone line. Mr. Kalapa, good evening. Thank you for joining us. It is a very worrying day for citizens of Bangalore, for journalists, for the entire fraternity, and for all of us who claim certain pride in our democracy for what has happened today. My plain question to you is, How could this murder have happened at 8:30 in the evening in Bangalore, where someone was shot point blank? Has law and order completely crumbled in the state of Karnataka?
I think you're focusing on the wrong issue, Faye. The important thing is that there have been 3 murders before this, and they've all been in cold blood. They've all been either in the early morning or in the evening. And one is a murder of Dabolkar, the other is of Pansare, and the other is of Mr. Kalburgi. Now, Gauri Lankesh's death also, it belongs to the same genre. She was a dear friend of mine. And what she shares in common with these 3 other people is her very strong opposition to the right wing. So this is, I think, something which is a common feature, and one. And two, that the entry seems to be a friendly entry, and then she's shot dead in cold blood, just like the other 3 have been. So it's clearly one of those murders which in which certain voices are being sought to be silenced. And I think as far as Gauri Lankesh is concerned, she had some very extremely strong views, and most of them were directed against the right wing. And just like Mr. Pansare, Mr. Dabolkar and Mr. Kalburgi earlier. So this will of course have to be seen by the police, but this is a prima facie view I'm giving you. And I must tell you that this death has really shocked us. And a lot of people who believe that there has to be dialogue and there has to be...
But Mr. Kalapa, let me ask you this. The murder of M.M. Kalburgi has still not been solved. No arrests have been made. It is still a state run by a government led by the Congress party. Isn't it up to the state government to lead law and order? Shouldn't these people have been arrested by now?
No, I think you're asking me a question which seems to try to implicate the state government. You're welcome to implicate the state government. There's no difficulty. There are several murders which can never be detected, and for the simple reason that the motive can't be made out. Now, if a person is, for instance, I am killed because of my voicing my views against the right wing, and it could be anybody from the right wing. How is the
Brijesh Kalapa, we were all aware of what Gauri Lankesh was writing about. She was a role model to several of us young journalists who grew up in the city of Bangalore. It is a day of deep personal and professional loss for all of us, but it is also a day to question law and order. As you rightfully said, she was a strong voice. She was someone we all knew personally. She was someone who deserved protection. It is a breakdown of law and order. Let's acknowledge both of those things. It is up to our governments to keep us safe, Brijesh Kalapa. How do we raise our voices if our state governments in charge of law and order cannot keep us safe?
For any law and order situation to be made, law and order is a general subject, and that concerns a large number of people. And you're speaking of specific people here. And when you're speaking of a specific person, murders happen across the world and across the country and across the state. Now, anyway, I don't want to get into this.
This is not acceptable, Mr. Kalapa. This is not acceptable that murders are happening all over the state. When it is a specific thing, one should be very clear. There is a state intelligence. What state intelligence is doing? If you do not have intelligence to render protection to such people, and now simply saying that all murders are not getting detected, are you simply talking about the failure of government? Are you talking about the failure of police machinery? Are you exactly talking about the failure of state and national intelligence services?
Who is this gentleman, Faye?
This is Mr. Dhanraj Vanjari. Mr. Vanjari is a retired IPS officer, very senior IPS officer with the Mumbai police.
Okay, then since he's with the Mumbai police, I would request him to first solve the murders of Mr. Pansare and Mr. Dabolkar, and then offer...
I beg your pardon, Brijesh Kalapa, that you're arrogant.
This is not a challenging competition between you and me, Mr. Kalapa. This is not a challenging competition between you and me. Do this and I will do that. This is not a thing I am talking about. Perhaps you are not understanding what I am trying to tell you.
I also want to bring in Amit Khemka here. Mr. Khemka,
I don't want to enter into a dialogue now, Faye. I'm not in a mood to Gauri was a personal friend of mine. You're welcome to, have a debate in regard to Gauri and what happened regarding her death on another occasion. This is a personal loss for me.
It's a personal loss for me too, Brijesh Kalapa. As a journalist, Brijesh Kalapa, as a journalist who grew up in the city of Bangalore, I'm going to ask myself whether or not the government in Bangalore can keep us all safe.
Please ask yourself. Please ask yourself. Thank you.
It's really unfortunate there that the government's, no government wants to take responsibility. We have to wrap up this conversation here. But on a day that has shocked most voices into silence, I must point out this. We were taught in journalism school by people like Gauri Lankesh that the pen is mightier than the sword. Could it be perhaps that tonight the gun was mightier than the pen? Will the pens in this country come together tonight and starting tomorrow to stand for Gauri Lankesh and what she stood for, to make sure that her voice is never silenced, and what she stood for, which was equality in society, removal of caste-based discrimination and injustice, and basic human rights, that we stand together and we never give up in the face of governments who don't care and people who threaten our lives. Journalists will come together, voices will rise, injustice will be fought. To the memory of Gauri Lankesh, we promise to carry on your work. Thanks for watching.